123. You're listening to the 123 show with me, Noreen Mayer, on this Monday afternoon. Let's turn to our first topic of today. Now, we're talking about traveling with animals, with your pets, with Dr. Barbara Padalino, who's an assistant professor in Animal Behaviour and Welfare at the Department of Infectious Diseases and Public Health at the City University of Hong Kong. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Padalino. Maybe let's hear about you first. Tell us about yourself. You're new to Hong Kong, I hear.
Yes, thank you first of all for having invited me, and I really like the topic. I'm a vet, I'm full qualified vet. I graduated in Italy, then I've started doing research in 2005 in animal science, and then I decided to do applied research in animal welfare, which I think is a great topic. So I've worked in different places in Europe, in Australia, and then
now in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong, yeah. We have this new college, as I think is the only college in veterinary medicine in Hong Kong. So I thought it could be a great opportunity for me. And so I applied for the job and here I am.
Excellent. Well, first of all, welcome to the program, and thank you so much, because I know it's also your area of interest, animal welfare and animal transportation as well, which is why I thought it's very fitting to invite you on to talk about this topic. And now for our listeners, casting our minds back a few months ago, United Airlines was involved in a controversy over the death of a dog that was kept in the plane's overhead cabin during a flight from Texas to New York. Now, this has sparked controversy all over the world, especially on social media as well. Maybe Dr. Padalino, what's your assessment of that situation? Could it have been avoided?
Definitely. So the problem is, I think it's really an isolated case, and I know that they're still investigating. So, often what we really read on Facebook is not the truth. So I know that like in US, they are actually taking really seriously, and so they are investigating the case.
I think United Airlines have since apologized and accepted full responsibility for the case as well.
Yes, but I think still we don't really know all the truth. And I want to point that actually, there are rules on how we can transport pets. And basically, pets can travel in cabin, but they have to be with an adult passenger and travel in a carrier, so in a creature which needs to stay under the seat. So that is the only way how, a normal pet can travel in cabin. Only basically service, so working dog or some other, in US they call emotional animal, they can actually travel in cabin without being in a container, but they need to be trained, and then they have to actually have this certificate that they are actually working dog. So this is the way how animals can travel in cabin. Otherwise, you can let them travel if they are bigger, because again, if they are, they don't be comfortable in this kennel under the seat, then they have to be in the cargo.
Yeah. Is emotional animals quite popular in the US?
Yes, they are. And I think only in US they have these rules that emotional pet can travel in cabin.
Yeah. Do they have them in Europe, for example? Because I'd never heard of them in Asia, these emotional pets. Or
in Europe, actually, they just speak about working dogs, so service dog if you're blind or if you have you need animals for it. Emotional dog are allowed to travel in cabin at the moment only in US, but we have these rules, and I want to point that all over the world there are some rules for moving animals by plane, and there is an association which is the IATA, International Air Transport Association, and there is a chapter all about animals. It's
wow.
Its name, Live Animal Regulation, and this is a quite big book, and there is written how whole type of animal can be transported, so from birds to lions.
you name it, they have the
Yes.
different rules for the entirely different animals.
Yes, because each species has different needs. So the IATA has developed this guideline, and actually IATA rules and these
Is it global?
global internationally. So this is actually, even in Europe we have a quite strong regulation. Is the one in 2005 about animal transportation. But when come up to air, then they refer to the IATA rules.
Yeah. So, what are some of the limits for hours for dogs, for example? I mean, is there a limit for are they only allowed to travel for up to 6-7 hours, or what's the rules
No.
for?
So, honestly, there are rules about the maximum long duration if you are speaking about large animal and road transportation. So we have different, like for instance, horses in Europe, 24 hours or
24 hours for horses?
Yes, but we're speaking about road transportation. So what's happened with the plane? That's actually all roads are less than 24 hours. So this is why you are actually no a particular rules about the maximum duration by plane, just because you have to comply with the normal roads, which are still anyway under 24 hours. But for instance, for dog, you have the rules that they have to be watered every 12 hours.
Oh, really?
So there are rules about how much water, how much food, but still the duration of the journey depends on the road. But IATA, for instance, suggests that you should always pick the shortest route. As a owner, you can travel from Australia to Europe, and then,
That's a good
24 hours.
Yeah.
But, you can even take 48 hours if you go for a cheap flight with long stops. This is kindly not suggested. You should always pick the shortest route.
Yeah. That surprised me about dogs, that they only need water every 12 hours when they're traveling as well. I would imagine they'd get quite thirsty up in high altitude.
Yeah, the problem is that dogs, they suffer a lot from motion sick, so they can vomit a lot.
Yeah, and they'd be dehydrated, I assume.
Yeah, but you should they must be watered before, and then anyway, when we're speaking at least every 12 hours, that no means that you cannot give more often. You cannot give less than it. So you know what I mean. So and anyway, in this container, then they need to have inside anyway something for watering, and then the person can refill from outside, because it's important and you don't let the dog out of the crate while it's traveling, but so you can always refill how much you want.
Yeah, and the temperatures of the crate is always a bit lower as well, I heard. It's quite cool.
They usually tend to keep the monitoring, but I have to say that usually you have more problem when it's hot and when it's cold. So we need to remember that our cold is not an animal cold.
You're right.
And then so actually there are some breeds of dog that cannot really travel when it's too hot.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some other conditions that should be considered as well when these animals are being transported. First of all, what sort of certification do you also need as well if you're a responsible owner?
Yeah, so definitely if you're a responsible owner, you need to know that you cannot move your animal in one day, because you need to follow some biosecurity rules. The first is a vet certificate, so only animals which are healthy can be transported. So first of all, you need an health check from your vet. But this is not enough, because, when you move animal internationally, there are also some biosecurity rules. So you might need some vaccination. I mean, it is the same for us. If you want to go to Africa, then you need
Brazil,
to.
Yeah.
So it is exactly the same. So depending from, I think, your departure and your destination, then you have to follow different vaccination plan, and sometimes there are clearly also quarantine rules. So you often the animals need to have a quarantine before departure and more often after departure.
Oh, both times as well?
Depends, depends from which country you are going in.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard the UK also relaxed their rules a little bit. We had a colleague who relocated from Hong Kong to the UK and they had a dog, and before they needed quarantine, but after, when they moved, they just missed it, and the dog was able to go without...
Exactly. It's always depend from where to where.
Yeah.
And then, usually, if you are moving animals, I don't know, even
Australia is quite strict.
Exactly. If you want to go to Australia, then you might have to do a quarantine. But and again, it depends mainly from where you are from, because clearly if you are coming from a region where the disease is endemic, you want to go in a place which is disease free, then clearly there are more rules.
Yeah. Dr. Padalino, what about the process of quarantine, and what effect does that have on the animals, and are you able to visit your pets when they are under quarantine as well? It depends on the location, of course.
Depends on the location, and then usually there are anyway always rules about biosecurity stuff. So you clearly you can go, but you have to follow the biosecurity, maybe change your clothes and stuff like that.
Okay. And how do the animals feel when they're under quarantine as well? Of course, it varies, but by and large, I mean, it seems like an unsettling experience for them, because they are not with their loved ones and not with their owners.
I know. This is why,
is it stressful?
Transport and also the quarantine is considered a stressful event for the animals. So this is why, clearly, we move animals a lot, just because, we also relocated a lot. But we need to think in advance, and it's important maybe to train the horse before transport and make sure he might be kind of happy in his kennel or crate. So, you know what I mean? If that become his home, then he can feel better. And then some suggest also to give maybe some of your clothes with your smells, so that the animals
feel more comfortable when they're in their enclosure.
Yeah. But this is why you need to start your training well before.
How much longer in advance?
I would suggest that if you have to move your pet, then you should probably start to think all about at least 1 month before, because you need the training, then you need to book your flights, and you cannot really transport your animal in all flights. For instance, even for the cabin, there are only some particular plane which are allowed to move animals in cabin, but there are always limited seats, so you need to plan in advance. And then it might be strange, but they actually have rules that if, for instance, there is a dog, maybe they will not accept a cat, because, they know that they get stressed if you mix species. So this is why it's important.
Wow, there's so much to consider.
Exactly.
I never thought of that.
So yeah, you cannot just, I think, take your last minute flights if you want to move your animals. So you need to plan in advance, be responsible, and again, there are lots of rules. There are people who actually work like me, doing experiment to give data how to make these rules better for the animal. And there are a group of people expert in that. So my strong advice would be, even contact a shipper. And there is this association, Animal Transport Association, and you can actually, just ask them, send them an email, and they will help you find a good shipper, give you the right advice.
Yeah, well, as a vet, Dr. Padalino, I'm sure you see a lot of owners, and are they prepared if they're moving their pets? And you ask them questions, say they come to you to check on their animals. Do you feel like they're prepared enough for the move, or do you also give them additional advice?
The vet is definitely the first reference point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think even I'm teaching now future vets, and clearly we are teaching also about transport and rules and animal welfare. So the vet is the first, if you like, person who needs to be trained, and then he can give the right advice to the clients.
Yeah. What about when the animal is stressed during traveling? Of course, they'll be alone in the crate. Is there any sort of form of sedation? Are animals often sedated when they travel?
Honestly, sedation for pets is not recommended because actually there are data with pets which died, the cause was often over sedation.
Oh,
so actually
there's a danger.
Yeah, IATA strongly recommended to not sedate the animals. If they need a sedation, then only the vet can actually prescribe it, and they really need to recommend the right dosage, because as I said, from past study, the majority of the cases of dogs and general pets which died due to transport were over sedation. And there is actually a study published where they have compared sedation versus no sedation, and actually they don't really found any benefit in sedation.
Wow, because I was speaking to some of the colleagues and they said, yeah, maybe sedation is the way forward, but you're saying...
Not for pets.
Yeah, no.
So, for other animals, I don't know... even horses, sometimes they need to be sedated, or really large cats.
Yeah.
They usually travel even
a lion.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? As I said, there are different rules depending on the species. For pets, is not recommended.
Of course, yeah. I can imagine, because maybe sedating your pet parrot isn't such a good such a good thing. So, what about if the pets are feeling unwell during transportation? Because that can happen, and who monitors them during the flight?
It depends on the type of animals we are speaking. As I said, large animal, large dog, pets, or large animal in general, they have to go in the cargo, and they are monitored by the name is flight grooms. So, and there are people who actually are really trained in animal handling, animal management, and all the flight rules.
Because they get kept where all the baggages are. Underneath the plane.
In the car, or there are even
cargo.
proper cargo plane, and so they are monitored by these people, and usually these people are experienced. So, for instance, they, as I said, the IATA train them. There are specific course which these people have to take, but then good shipping company usually do also. Training, so they put an unexperienced flight groomer with an experienced one for at least 2 years.
Yeah.
So this is for the cargo. In cabin, clearly there is the owner, which can clearly monitor the animal. Just under the seats in front of him, and then if any animal is feeling unwell, then the flight groomer or the owner can contact the pilot. The cabin pilot, and then they have a contingency plan, and then they have number of vets or trainer 24 hours 7. So and then.
But not on the flight.
No, but they can call.
Okay.
Yeah, they can call. I mean, some horses often travel also with the vets. So it can be the case, or zoo animal often, depending on the shipment. So some plane with particular animals, require a vet, and then the vet is in the cargo. If not, as I said, they have numbers of vets, and they can contact, and then even each airport which does cargo, but not all airports do, but the airport which do cargo with animals, they have a proper staff which is available, so they if they got this call that the animal is sick, and then they have to stop in a different airport, then they make sure that the vet and the right people can help. Is there when? Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know you teach future vets as well, but can you teach some of our listeners to be better, responsible pet owners? What sorts of questions should they be really asking when they are transporting their pets if they're relocating? Because Hong Kong is a place where people often relocate to and from.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to give advice. You can share my email, and then I'm happy to give advice. But definitely, as we already said, probably ask your vet first of all, because as I said, it's really important to have a vaccination plan, and then there's a health certificate. And then I would suggest to contact the Animal Transport Association, because you can just put a request. You say, I need to move my dog from Hong Kong to UK, and they may give you a quote and put you in contact with the best shipper.
Yeah. And have you got any websites that you can recommend as well? What was the
Animal Transport Association is a website.
Okay, Animal Transport Association. Yeah. I'll bear that in mind should we ever relocate as well. Finally, before I let you go, you specialize in horses as well. Let's talk a little bit about that. So, how do you transport horses? Is it mainly shipping, or is it through flight cargo?
The horses cannot go in cabin. They have to be.
Yeah, they can't go into it.
Yeah, no, they go in cargo, and there are some cargo stall. They can be 3 horses, 2 horses, or 1 horses, depending, kind of economy or business class. And
really,
yes. And so and there are clearly rules about. I'm actually just starting a new experiment where we want to actually understand which is the incidence of problem and which are the risk factor, and actually we can even design the cargo better to make sure the horses travel safer. So we are just probably starting.
Oh, that's exciting. Do they get spooked quite easily? Do they get frightened?
Because horses can. So, and also for horses, it's really important the training. So I've written a review on how you should train your horse. Make sure that they can cope. So they it's called habituation training. So you need to habituate to load, stay quiet in a trailer, for instance, and then unload, and then you do over and over until they can cope with it.
This is so interesting. I never thought I'd be talking about equine horse transportation on the 123 show, but I'm really glad we did. The reason I asked is because 2008 we had the Olympics in Beijing, but we also had the equestrian here in Hong Kong. So for the Paralympics, there was the horse in the if you like in the stadium doing the rounds with the athlete, but then because it was the Paralympics, some of the horses got spooked very easily, so they had a companion horse, so there were always 2 horses at the same time.
Horses are also herd animals, so they are really social animals. This is why often they are better. They call with a buddy until the buddy is a proper buddy. They are happy. For instance, while you transport horses, it's really important that you pair horses if they know each other. So it's always a good advice, not mix animal from different herd, because they can even start fighting. And I mean, even for pets, they actually only if they are really puppies or kittens more than 12 weeks, they can travel together. Otherwise, it's strongly recommended to actually, because,
to travel separately.
Yeah, because, when you're stressed, you get more crampy. Yes. So even animals, they do the same. And if they get tired, they can become crampy, and they might start become aggressive toward even if it's a friend, you know what I mean? So in that case, it's better be anyway, in different crater.
Well, thank you for your sharing, and I learned so much from you. And that's Dr. Barbara Padalino, an assistant professor in Animal Behaviour and Welfare at the Department of Infectious Diseases and Public Health at the City University of Hong Kong. Thank you so much for your sharing, and I look forward to having you back another time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.